To our viewers and listeners, welcome. This debate is presented by City Club of Corvallis and the Corvallis Advocate. City Club of Corvallis is a volunteer-run, nonprofit organization that seeks to present a diversity of viewpoints and constructive dialogue. The Advocate offers fresh daily hyperlocal news for Corvallis, town halls and debates, and an extensive weekly events calendar. I'm Steve Schultz of the Corvallis Advocate, and co-moderating with me is Helen Higgins, an active community volunteer and previous City Club board member. For this debate, we have Ward 1 incumbent Jan Napak and challenger Beckett Hunt. Thank you both for participating. Helen?
All right, welcome. And we are going to start with Beckett, who won the toss. So Beckett, if you could please introduce yourself and tell us what are your primary reasons for running for City Council? And you have 1 minute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beckett Hunt. I am running for the seat of Ward 1. I came to Corvallis around 3 years ago from rural Idaho, where I grew up. And my main motivations for running for council are to help Corvallis become even more ecologically responsible in this time of growing climate crisis, to help maintain and increase the legal rights for renters and workers. And just in general, I hope to make this city a better, more communal place for everyone that lives here.
All right, thank you. Jan, if you'd please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for re-election.
Yes, my name is Jan Napak. I currently represent Ward 1, which by area is probably one of the largest wards, or if not the largest ward. It notably includes Highway 20-34 Philomath Boulevard corridor, extends to the Philomath city limits. I grew up in Riverside, California. I've been here for roughly 50 years. My first foray into city government was 1974. When the council was meeting in the Big O banquet room. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I know it goes quick. All right, so our next question, we'll start with Jan. So Jan, if you could tell us or speak to us about housing, which is on the forefront of the minds and concerns of many residents. What ideas would you bring forward to address housing and housing inventory?
So we are doing I think the city is doing already a bang up job. We've already gotten 400 units just completed or in the process of being completed of affordable housing. And those were brought about by particular multifamily instruments, financial instruments. We've also got the construction excise tax that went into that. And on the horizon is 50-unit workforce housing off of Spruce. What we've embraced, what the city's embraced, is the promise of middle housing. Those row houses, cottage houses, infill, something we can and must do. The city is very, very good at getting the systems in place for these houses, but they can't directly control inflation or land prices or cost of labor and materials, investor ownership, impact of remote work, and so on and so on. But the city has been diligently streamlining and conforming the code to the state mandates, and this is the land development code, and they understand, and I understand, the variety of housing is necessary, and it also includes home ownership. And I'm hoping the feds can find a way to provide down payment funds for first-time home buyers. Home ownership creates equity, family wealth. It's a great equalizer.
All right, thank you, Jan. So Beckett, same question. What ideas would you bring forward on housing?
So as myself as a renter, a high priority of mine in terms of housing is further legal protections for renters. While we as a city are not legally allowed to exert rent control, that has to come from the state level, there are still a variety of policy actions we can take. One that I'm extremely interested in seeing employed in the upcoming years is a full tenants bill of rights, like many other cities like Portland have adopted, that is currently being written by our local tenants union and that we hope to see presented within the next 2 years, within the next council term, which, as I stated, cannot legally include rent control. However, it can include restrictions on things such as deposit prices, application prices, time of application, and further protections for renters who have their security deposits seized unlawfully. I do agree that the city already does an incredible job on providing low-income housing and a variety of housing to support varied needs. However, there is always more work to do. As Jan mentioned, the 400, soon to be approaching 500 units of income restricted housing that are being developed across the city are essential to getting people in houses and keeping them there. I would like to see more of these developments, especially in the style of cottage housing and co-op living, like some places as close as Springfield have employed, that provide people with unique opportunities for community as well as lower income housing. I would like to see more infill development in mixed use zoning specifically, so people are allowed to work and live in the same areas, decreasing their reliance on car infrastructure.
All right, thank you, Beckett. All right, next question. We'll start with Beckett on this one. What are your views on how we are addressing homelessness in Corvallis? And specifically, what do you believe would be best practices for our community going forward? And you have 1.5 minutes.
This is a complicated issue and also a core priority of mine as someone who is a renter, relatively low income, of many friends in town who are currently houseless. I believe that currently the majority of the actions we take on the city level are mostly punitive, such as on the forefront of people's minds, the sweeps of houseless encampments. While these may seem helpful to the overall goal of getting people off the streets, I believe and have experienced that these are mostly punitive measures and force people into a state of constant displacement rather than addressing the base issues causing people to become houseless, which ties into the need for more low-income housing. And I would like to see, in terms of specific policy actions, I would like to see the current city budget allocations for carrying out sweeps reallocated towards more social services, which currently social services receives less than 1% of our annual city budget. And social services such as Jackson Street Youth, the Drop-In Center, and the managed Safe Camp down by First Congregational are essential to getting people off the streets and keeping them off the streets. In my opinion, it is all about providing aid, providing caseworkers who will be with people from the beginning to the end of their experience with gaining and retaining housing.
All right, thank you. Jan, your question.
Well, right. So right now the city funds and supports many social service agencies. In fact, one example is they're going to be allocating $1.2 million to Men's Cold Weather Shelter, Unity Shelter, to buy the land underneath the shelter on Chapman instead of leasing it. So, but here's the thing: HUD dollars are what the city can utilize, and they all come with strings attached and accountability. So what I would like to see the state do, or the county, or somehow or another, we need funds that are more flexible. So for instance, we take the women's shelter. They're at the church they're in the church gymnasium over on Monroe, and they're not, they're going to need a different location pretty soon. They might not be able to wait for HUD to come through. So we need flexible dollars. We need state funding, I think, and then the county or like Hope would be able to appropriate those funds accordingly, and that's what Hope is for. On the positive side, the percent of, you need to know this, the sheltered individuals increased to 64% from 43% the year before, and 36% the year before that. So that speaks to progress being made on sheltering, and it's partially due to the 274 units of Section 8 housing that have been just put online.
All right, thank you, Jan. All right, a very brief question. I'd just like to do a follow-up on your view, yes or no, on sweeps. We'll, Jan and then Beckett, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I think that the community might not fully understand that unmanaged camping is not a viable solution to homelessness. And I mean, some people think people have a right to camp in the park. But although they have rights, they need to be nudged. It's called a soft touch. They need to pursuing solutions that will meet their particular needs. It takes a number of soft touches to get some of these folks into programs and stability. Curiously, you know, most of the folks that are being swept. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Beckett, your turn. 30 seconds. What's your view on sweeps?
I am rather staunchly anti-sweeps as someone who's been on the ground providing support to people being swept, most recently during the preterm sweeps of Pioneer Park. I have seen sweeps cause nothing but destruction, both for the folks camped there and for the ecosystems they are camped within. People lose sometimes all of their belongings and are forced into a constant state of displacement, putting them even farther back from the potential of seeking stable housing. While I agree that unregulated camps are not the goal, much less camps in our public areas, sweeps are not the way to go about this and cause more harm than good.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to shift gears here and let's move into the topic of local business. And Jan, you'll have the first question on this one. Some downtown business owners are updating their buildings and a new hotel, retail, and apartments are on the horizon. If presented with the opportunity to support either an urban renewal district or a tax incremental financing proposal, would you support it? If so, why? If not, why not? And you have 1 minute.
Well, yes, I would totally support this. And I understand the Chamber of Commerce is in total support of this. And what it involves is a couple of aspects of it, say a revolving loan fund for smaller loans that get paid out, you know, every 6 months or quarterly. Also a grants that are for larger endeavors. And these would revitalize downtown. I think doing so, we get more employees, we would get more business, we would get more viability, economic viability. So no doubt.
Okay. Thank you. Beckett, same question.
I'm going to echo what Jan said for the most part. I would also be in support of these measures. I think it is essential to maintain the economic viability of our town, specifically the downtown economic hub. However, I would like to see continued and increased support for small businesses and for mixed-use zoning within these small businesses, allowing people to, as I stated previously, live and work within the same areas. I believe providing grants, funding, and tax exemptions for small businesses looking to establish themselves in Corvallis is essential to maintaining our economy and maintaining economy in terms of people who live and work here rather than large businesses seeking to enter our town.
Okay, thank you. So Beckett, you'll have this next question. It's a good segue. A financially sustainable community includes a robust business community. What can we do to attract more business or industry to Corvallis? And you have 1 minute.
Well, things such as local, state, and federal funding are essential to attracting businesses, as well as some tax exemptions. However, my priorities lie more in line with maintaining what kinds of businesses are we attracting, how are they becoming established within our town, how are they treating and paying their workers, and what protections exist for the workers and for the people living around them in addition to the businesses. Believe that Corvallis, as a quickly growing economic center in the Mid-Valley, that there is already an immense pull for businesses to come and establish themselves here. So I am more prioritizing exactly how that happens, how that is maintained and established over the years to come.
Great. Thank you, Beckett. Jan, what are your thoughts on business and industry?
Right. I think it takes business and industry to attract business and industry. It's kind of builds upon itself. So we do have OSU and incubator things going on with Hewlett Packard and other entrepreneurs in town. I would like to make sure that if we want to attract industry, which I definitely do, in the industrial areas, we need to, I guess, not bend our rules to our disadvantage. But say if we have a plan that been in place for 15 or 20 years, like say a road going through a particular piece of property, and the city can't move that road because it's in the plan, that's a little irritating. So we need to work with the industry. We need to do outreach, and we can do that. We do have other means of doing that. We have a joint county city economic development committee, and that's what we need to put our efforts into.
Right. Thank you. All right, let's talk about city infrastructure. The city has a lengthy list of both public works projects and facility maintenance and repairs. And the delayed maintenance has shown up in things like burst water pipes and office spaces that are outdated and cramped. So Jan, we'll start with you. What process would you use to prioritize funding for projects? And do you have an opinion as to what is most critical to put at the top of the list for action? And you have a minute and a half.
Oh, just okay. Well, we do due diligence. We're workmanlike in making sure our streets and infrastructure is repaired and maintained. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of compromise to get those things done. But if we're going to grow, if we're going to be attracting other businesses, I think one of our, I guess you could say, warts is we've got a municipal court and IT buildings and meeting buildings that are built in the 50s, in the early 70s. They're not attractive. I'm leaving the City Hall 1892 church out of this entirely, but we need facilities that are going to be used in the next 40, 50 years. We cannot continue with what we have now and expect to attract industry, expect to build our tax base.
Okay, thank you. All right, Beckett, same question.
I believe in terms of infrastructure that our top two priorities should go hand in hand in terms of livability and ecological viability within the next 20 to 40 years. There should be emphasis on maintaining infrastructure that allows the citizens of Corvallis to live dignified and full lives, such as maintaining roads, maintaining water, sewage, electricity, all of our various utilities. In addition to ensuring that new developments, renovations, and new buildings are designed in a way with ecological sustainability in mind, especially in the long term, in the 20, 40, 60-year future. Which is something that I would like to see implemented specifically that is re-implementation of home energy scores, which will provide motivation for both homeowners and property owners to make updates to their properties to increase the energy efficiency and ecological soundness of their properties. In addition to, I would like the instinct to be renovation and retrofitting rather than demolition and entirely new development. Because while it does make sense on some level to design an entirely new facility to be greener, we have to consider the initial ecological cost of building that new facility rather than retrofitting an existing one.
Right. Okay. Thank you. All right, next question, and we'll start with Beckett on this one. The city has been exploring the building of a new civic campus that would replace the current city hall, council meeting chambers, municipal court, and possibly the police station. What's your view of the necessity for new facilities, and how would you approach getting them paid for? Beckett, you have 1 minute.
I believe that some aspects of the civic center plan are absolutely essential, that staff needs facilities that work for them and accommodate their needs. I've currently seen that people have desks in stairwells and there's very little ADA accessibility, in addition to facilities not being ecologically sound. However, the proposed full civic campus plan would cost upwards of $5 million more per facility, in terms of building an entirely new facility rather than remodeling and utilizing the existing facilities and building sites. The citywide facilities strategy states itself that there are some advantages to specifically the police station co-locating with City Hall on a civic campus. However, this depends on acquiring appropriately sized and located property and is less feasible than investing in existing city-owned property. This additionally ties into environmental concerns of constructing new multi-million-dollar facilities, which I got into briefly in my previous statement. Applies to considering both the financial and the ecological cost of building new facilities.
Great. Thank you. Jan.
Well, I don't think there's much of I was on the civic campus outreach task force. And I want you to know that we don't have a solution. We're not proposing a solution. What we're doing is we are getting the pulse of the community. What is it the community thinks that we need? Those results will be presented, I believe, next week or the week after. Yes, we need better facilities. We have, obviously, the Parks Department has been flooded a couple of times. The maintenance yard has been flooded a couple of times. The law enforcement building basement floods. IT is working out of 3 different buildings. We don't have the accessibility to the law enforcement building. We don't have security to the city hall, so on and so forth. And these are all built in the 40s, the 50s, and the early 70s. This is before we had particular energy codes for buildings. So we are wasting our carbon footprint. In other words, we need better buildings.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. Water bill fees. This is a topic of conversation with residents who have seen the service fees continue to increase on their water bills. How would you balance the need for the city to generate revenue with the impact of these increasing the cost of living for homeowners and renters? So we'll start with Jan, and you have 1.5 minutes.
Sure, I think, this is a tough one, being not on the council and opposing fees, and then being on the council and supporting fees. The fact is that not everyone pays the fees. Nonprofits have a different setup. The cost of living on homeowners and renters is, it's a flat tax. And I say tax liberally, it's not really a tax. It's been classified as a fee and court mandated as a fee. But everyone pays, but people who live on gravel roads with no curbs and no street lights and none of the amenities, no sidewalks, they pay the same fee. So I don't like that. Can we review our fee structure? Can we say that we're spending too much on trying to repair sidewalks, let people who own their home pay for their own repair in front of their house like they used to do. Why do we have to put it on the city utility bill?
Right. All right. Thank you. Beckett, your turn.
I would agree with Jan in the statement that our fee system should be relooked, and that fees are being paid, that a blanket approach to fees, with the exception of nonprofits and the like, is rarely efficient nor equitable for those being affected. However, I think an important aspect uh, of water utility fees that people may not be aware of is the effect that logging within the Marys River watershed has on our water processing. I received a presentation from the Friends of the Watershed a couple months ago. They're currently gathering scientific data on how the turbidity of water is affected by logging within the watershed, and then how that affects the cost of water treatment within our city, which directly trickles down to the fees that people have to pay regarding their water. It's a core priority of mine as a climate activist and as someone who prioritizes the rights of renters and homeowners, that we limit commercial logging within the watershed in both an attempt to make our city more financially viable for all people living here and to limit the ecological effects of logging on our water.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes our formal questions. We're now going to move into the lightning round with Steve Schultz. Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Helen. And yep, this is a lightning round. They're going to move a little bit quicker. The questions come from a variety of sources. They may feel a bit random. They're a bit all over the map. We'll start out with, and I'll start out with Beckett. Do you believe the city's pursuit of the Ellis matter has been a good use of the city's time and resources? I'm going to give you around 30 seconds on this.
I absolutely do not believe that the Ellis case is a good use of city resources and money. It has cost the city, as of March, $100,000 in legal fees. And I'd just like to reemphasize that whether or not Ellis's motion is protected under First Amendment right is a moot point. The city charter is a living document designed to change and grow to accommodate the needs of the city as we change and grow. This is something that should be addressed with solution-based conversation rather than legal litigation.
Thanks, Jan. Moving to you, same question.
Right. So from what I'll have to say that our city charter, that particular chapter is boilerplate, and there are dozens of cities in Oregon that have that same exact wording. So it's not, it's being challenged on.
Jan, has it been a good use of city resources to pursue the Ellis matter as it's been pursued?
Oh, thank you. Had we been able to go to due process immediately, I would have much preferred that, but I can't otherwise comment.
Okay. And then given you couldn't move to due process, the way that the matter has been dealt with, does that strike you as the only way it could have been dealt with outside of the process?
No, I don't think so. But had we not been sued, it might have been, we could have.
In other words, I guess the question is, did the leadership committee have potentially other avenues they could have pursued other than seeking to, in essence, oust Charlene Ellis?
I imagine so.
Okay. Beckett, I'm going to let you follow up because I gave Jan some follow-up there. Do you believe leadership committee could have pursued other avenues?
Yes, absolutely. And this ties into a point I made previously, that I believe many of our current city policy operations are punitive rather than constructive, and I feel like this is an excellent example of a
Okay,
punitive
good. I
process
think
being
I've got it.
fostered.
Okay. Next question, and I'm going to start with Jan on this one. What can the city of Corvallis do to work with Benton County to ensure that Republic Services is a responsible and ethical partner? Jan, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds on this.
This is a regional problem. Republic Services has their priorities. The county needs to reset priorities. This is a Title V permit that Republic Services has violated. So I don't know what we can do with Republic Services, but we can work with the county, and the county should be working with other regionals, Marion County, Polk, Lynn, and so on.
And what can you be doing to work with the county?
What we can do with we're 60,000 out of 90,000 people in this county. We are stakeholders.
Okay, good. I'm going to move to Beckett on the question. Republic Services, Beckett.
I would like to see the franchise agreement that is coming due within the next couple of years completely reevaluated to prioritize both the ecological livability of our city and the economic stability of everyone that lives within it.
Okay, I'm going to move over to divestment. A number of the slate of candidates challengers this year have talked about divestiture from investments in Israeli companies and companies that profit out of Israel. Beckett, your stance, 30 seconds.
Uh, regardless of your moral or regardless of your personal opinions on the state of Israel, I believe that as taxpayers, the fact that our money is going to fund a legally established genocide in Palestine is reprehensible, and all of us at every level of government should oppose this.
Jan Napak, 30 seconds.
I have to disagree. Yes, we need morally we need a vision on how we do our investments if we can control them. We're not always able to do that, but a boycott of Israeli products is not the answer.
Okay, moving along. So noise ordinances. A while back, a citizen got up in front of the council. Council seemed interested. City manager's working on it. We're talking about a woman that used as an example, and it's a great example. This is not your typical leaf blower. It is not your typical loud music. This is not transitory. This is somebody who placed an air conditioning compressor for their building about a foot from this woman's window. I think bedroom window is what she said. And it just plays AC compressor music all day long. That's what it does. Makes noise all day long. And is there something that you believe that you would support in building code to have noise specifications and then enforce the building code however we normally enforce building codes? I'm going to start with you on that one, Jan.
Right. So there are building codes elsewhere. You shouldn't be putting anything, an HVAC unit in the setback. And that's between the homes, between the houses. And setbacks are getting smaller and smaller as we move on. So that would be a building code issue, problem right there. We don't have a noise ordinance. Those are a little difficult to enforce, but we should have a threshold.
Okay. So in short, you would answer, yeah, you'd like to see some new code.
Yeah.
Okay, Beckett, to you.
I'm gonna have to agree on this point as well. I would also like to see code in city building codes with relation to noise ordinances, that noise pollution is a rather serious issue and should be treated as such. It affects the livability and the basic quality of life of anyone affected.
Okay, and I'll start with you on this one, Beckett. Currently, we have a contract with a city attorney. It's far more expensive than when we had somebody on retainer. Would you support, I think it comes up again in another couple of years, would you support the city investigating, potentially hiring its own attorney, much as the county has done for itself? They have a county council, or exploring contracts where somebody would be just on retainer rather than the hourly. Beckett?
If it's fiscally realistic, I would love to see the city hire someone on retainer. In speaking to current counselors, I have heard many express frustrations with not being able to reach out to the city attorney on things in an efficient and timely manner, and it just affects the efficiency of all levels of
You'd
our
like to look into it.
Mhm.
Okay. Even if it's not a cost issue, it costs a couple bucks more, hiring city council make sense to you potentially?
Yes.
Jan Napak.
Yeah, well, at first I was opposed. I wanted someone local. But then in this litigious society and the changes going on right now, it's a good investment to go to a multi-faceted law firm, and we do have access to them.
Okay, moving along. Then I'll give you a supposed situation that actually happened. So let's say we have a livability issue approach the community, but as city councilors, you have no authority. But you still want to address the situation for your constituents, your neighbors. We had a situation like this come up where Optum Health has now taken over the Corvallis Clinic. It's arguable if that had been jumped on earlier and pressure applied in the right places, maybe something different could have happened. As a city councilor, where you see something coming down the road like that, and I think we will probably grow to rue the day that Optum took over Corvallis Clinic. The paper has said so explicitly. Um, how would you approach that? You don't have the authority to do anything, but you want to help your constituents. I'm going to go ahead and start with Jan on this one.
Well, I can help my constituents by explaining the situation and why and how it came about. I know that Optum Health was stealthily buying up a bunch of hospitals and clinics and so on and so forth for the last several years. There's nothing I can do about that, but I can make people understand why and alternatives to what the situation is currently being presented to them. What else can they do? And will things change? So that's about the gist. That's how I would approach it. And I have approached it like that. So I'm speaking from experience.
Okay, Beckett, moving to you.
In addition to reaching out to people on both the local, county, and state level who may have the ability to affect this hypothetical situation, I would like to place emphasis on assisting constituents in grassroots organizing, in both providing information and providing avenues for assembly and for local non-policy grassroots action by our constituents.
Okay, we'll move to closing statements, and we'll do 30 seconds each. And I'm going to actually say 45 seconds each, and I will start with Jan Napak.
Great. Okay, I'm going to speak fast. Let me go back to my opening statement. My first foray into city government was in 1974. The council was meeting in the Big O banquet room. They were discussing whether or not to revitalize downtown or to raise it. And I grew up in and they brought Riverside, California up as an example of a failed downtown revitalization program, and we should not be wasting our money. I was in the audience, and I grew up in Riverside. I set them straight, and that's what I had a lot to say about it, in other words. So one reason I went into science, I'll get to it. There are far too many things that people believe are true, but they don't realize they are inherited assumptions. I've debunked a few of these while on council, and I think
I'll give you 10 more seconds.
It's important that someone be on board that digs down.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and give you actually 50 seconds closing from you, Beckett Hunt.
I'll keep this brief. I'd like to start by thanking you, Stephen and Helen, for hosting this, and Jan for joining me. And I look forward to seeing increased and continued community involvement within local government, such as that we've seen in this current city council race. I would like to encourage voters to prioritize their votes in terms of livability, climate action, and the rights of their fellow man and of the people around them, rather than the rights of large businesses. Thank you.
Beckett Hunt, Jan Napak, thank you for your participation in this
Thank you.
debate. I want to thank my
I
co-moderator.
think Jan didn't get her closing. Did you do your closing, Jan?
No,
You
I
did.
did. Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh,
Good.
sorry. Keep going.
That's okay. But yes, Beckett and Jan, thank you for your participation. And thank you, Helen, for co-moderating. I also want to thank staff, volunteers, subscribers, donors, sponsors that make these debates possible. The Advocate plans to issue their endorsements on October 25. City Club makes no endorsements of any kind concerning candidates or issues and focuses more on just presenting a diversity of viewpoints and respectful dialogue like what we have had today. Thank you.